Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio on the evening of Tuesday, the 7th of January, the year 2025, by the one and only, the incomparable, the effervescent, the unkillable, Johnny Larkin. How are you, Johnny?
Pretty fantastic after that introduction. That was some intro from yourself. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to this episode. Should be a good one. A bit of fun, I think we had. A bit of a headache conundrum for us both, I believe. Trying to fit in our players that we put in round one in a way.
That's right. Tonight's episode, as Johnny said, 2025 team selection thoughts. We're going to get into it. We're sort of forecasting ahead. First game of the preseason will happen, a match sim against Hawthorn. I think that was February 17th down at Cardinia Park. We're forecasting, we're forging our minds ahead to think about what Geelong's best 23 / first 23 might look like round one when we take on Brisbane. And of course, there'll just be some 2025 team selection thoughts in there in general. That'll be the bulk of the next 25 minutes here on the public show. And then if you want to increase your show from 25 minutes to say like a 45 minute show, go on over and subscribe for a free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. Tonight, we're going to be talking about who might retire in 2025. Obviously, we had the great Tom Hawkins hang up the boots last year, 2 seasons, prior to that. We had Selwood hang up the boots. We're going to have a chat about who we think it might be. I've got a couple of ones that maybe are, I don't know if they're surprising, but they might not be the one or two that you might immediately go for. So if you want to hear us talk about that, go on over, sign up for a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. Johnny, before we start the public episode tonight, need to say big Hoops Crew Media Network thank you to our media network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. You can visit them at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook spelt with an E. You can phone them up on 035 222 2244, or if you want to make use of the Hoops Crew Media Network 20% off discount in store, go on over to shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Tell them that the Hoops Crew sent you, and they will knock 20% off your next in-store purchase. One out of every $5, mate, of your next in-store purchase.
Yep.
Cyril Cook,
not bad.
Thank them for their sponsorship of the network. Johnny, let's jump in. Let's talk about 2025 team selection thoughts. Obviously, there's been some players go out. There's some players have come in. And we're just wanting to have a bit of a discussion for the next 25 minutes about our thoughts. Any sort of thoughts we want to table about team selection in 2025, what the best 23 might look like. We both had a crack at taking the prelim final side from 2024 against the Lions. Pardon me, just choking on a cup of tea. And sort of making a few changes where we thought we might see some, whether that be because players have moved on or they're injured or whatever it might be. Predicting a bit of development from others, or of course, new recruits coming in. So let's have a look, Johnny, at where we went. I'll just bring them up here on the screen because I've got both of our teams laid out here. So let's have a look at the back line first, and we'll sort of talk the back six, I guess, backs and half backs as a total. I went with Jed Buse. Sure, that'll cause a bit of a stir, but that's a conversation point like to have. I've got Buse, Jack Henry, Jake Kolajasny, Max Holmes, Mark Blixarves, and Zach Guthrie. What did you go with, Johnny, for your back six?
I've gone Jack Henry, Zach Guthrie, Kolajasny, Max Holmes, Tom Stewart, and Blixevs. So very similar to yours, just one couple of changes, but it's pretty tough to change up that back line from what it was. It works extremely well. Buse is a good, hard-working lockdown player. He's not going to do anything special, but I absolutely get why you put him in there. He's a workhorse who just gets the job done week in, week out. But I just feel like I wanted Tom Stewart in the back line, in a half back. I feel like because we've got some new players coming in that can fill that centre followers part. I think having Tom Stewart back on that back line, like half back even, I just feel like he could do some good things from the back again, where he plays absolutely his probably best footy.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from, and I think that Stewart's probably shown he can play not just out and
Anyway,
out talls, but he has played on smaller players
yeah,
as well. The only thing I would say, I do like the idea. So the two players I wrestled with here, and we'll get to why I didn't put Stewart in the back six in mine, but the
a very good
reason
reason
being,
why he didn't.
I just want one of those sort of medium or small defenders who's got a bit of a physical sort of presence there. Like I know
Yep.
you can, we'll talk about Lawson Humphreys in a bit, but he to me isn't that lockdown type of defender that we're talking about. So the two players that was between for me really were Jed Buse and O'Sheen Mullen. And right now, I'm just giving the nod by a whisker to Jed Buse. I think he's a more limited player than O'Sheen Mullen in terms of the sort of ceiling that he can have, but he's got a much higher floor at the moment. At the moment,
Mm.
we just don't know what we're going to get with O'Sheen come 2025. I thought there was some signs of improvement last year. I also thought there were signs of some stagnation and a few areas where it probably slid backwards a bit across the second half of the year. But I think right now I want one of those two in my back six, and so I'm going to go with Buse. But I totally get why you might not, and back to someone like Stewart maybe to play something like that if needed. Let's talk about the center line, Johnny.
Yep.
We've gone identical here. Bailey Smith, Patrick Dangerfield, Ollie Dempsey. Pretty hard to look past those three, Johnny. And
Yeah.
so did you give any consideration to playing Bailey Smith anywhere else? Or was it always like, we'll have him on one side, Dempsey on the other, Dangerfield in the middle, and Bob's your uncle?
The only other thought I might have had was maybe put him on the half back, but knowing how good Blitz Stewart Holmes can play off the half back, and knowing that he didn't really want to play half back or somewhere else around the ground when he was at the Bulldogs, it's like, yeah, we would rather have him where he knows how to play the game really well, especially in the first few rounds. So, yeah, it was a pretty easy decision to put him in at centre. I was even thinking like followers as well. But yeah, that
Yeah.
center line followers area, I think around there is where will get the most out of him for his first like few weeks, and most likely for the rest of his career at the Cats. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that like all the talk was like, oh, he doesn't want to play out wide, or doesn't want to play on a wing, or he doesn't want to play here or there. I think if I think that he'll play, if I think he's one of those players. If we're winning, he will play where he's asked to
Yep.
play. If Geelong can keep him really happy, and feeling good about his footy and his position at the club, then I think he'll play where you want him to play. I sort of I was exactly the same as you. I thought, there'll be times where he'll probably go on ball, maybe like Max Holmes does. And Max Holmes will still get time on ball in different moments as well. Maybe it's when Dangerfield rests up forward maybe Holmes goes on ball, and that's when you have Lawson Humphreys in the game off halfback, or I don't know. Like we know it's pretty fluid in the way in which they switch it around, but I really liked Max Holmes off halfback last year. I
Yep.
know that at times his kicking was a bit up and down, but it's going to
Yep.
be interesting to see where he spends most of his time in 2025.
The damage the speed he can get up to coming off that halfback is just pretty ridiculous. And yeah, his kicking isn't that the best yet, but he's still fairly young. He's still developing a player. And I'll dare anyone to kick perfectly running at full tilt with someone chasing you to a perfect every single time. It's a very difficult thing to do, be able to kick a perfect ball while you're running at your top speed while being chased by other players or pressured by other players, and especially in high pressure games. But yeah, so the fact that he's able to do it and kick a fairly long, dangerous ball into the forward line is still extremely damaging. And sometimes those long, high ones are more damaging than the direct ones.
Yeah, especially if your team knows what's coming and
Yeah.
can impact it, whether that's Shannon Neal or someone getting under it and bringing it to ground or no, I definitely agree. He's just to follow up your point, he's only 22. He'll turn 3 in August of this year. So
Yeah.
he's still got so much footy ahead of him.
Yet he's so
And I thought
integral.
his defensive work got better in the 2024 season. I think if you look, I haven't got it in front of me, but I feel like we talked about his intercept possessions and his ability to read the game really improved as the year went on.
Yep.
I know that they did start to need him, injected on ball at times, but I thought he showed some really nice stuff off halfback too.
I was the BNF. Yeah, BNF, so he had a pretty good season.
Went pretty well. Let's talk the forward 6, Johnny. I think we've got the same players, but there's 2 in slightly different positions. I had Tyson Stengel, Shannon Neal, Sean Manor as the half forwards. I had Brian Myers, Jeremy Cameron, Ollie Henry as the sort of full forwards. What did you have?
Exactly the same as you, except I've got Neil and Cameron swapped. So I've got Neil in the full forward and Cameron half forward.
What can you explain to me your thinking behind that? What do you like about that sort of setup?
I just like the idea that Cameron is such a more agile player than Neil, and I think that half forward line, you just sort of want one like tall guy who's a bit more agile, who can just. I don't know, Cameron's a pretty kick, so he can kick from anywhere. Neil's still developing, so yeah, I think Neil will benefit from being more that full forward, big body target who can work on one-on-one contests, work getting his body built up, rather than having to stress too much about agility, outpacing players, kicking it long. I just feel like it might give him more time to develop on the key aspects of the game that we need him to work on. Plus, as I said, Jeremy Cameron's a freak.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose my reason is purely selfish for having Jeremy Cameron at full forward in terms of like, I just want to see a season where he's the spearhead and he kicks like 90 goals, 80 or 90 goals. Like, I just think the games where they just throw him forward where it's like, shit, we need something. They throw him forward. Those are the games he kicks 4, 5, 6 goals. But yeah, no, I can see what you mean. Like the sort of the nuance in that conversation around, like, I know we all want to see Cameron kicking the bags of goals, but you can't deny his class and ability with the ball to put it on a platter for his teammates too, like and get involved in the build-up play. He's one of our better kicks going inside 52. So I like that. But yeah, I'll have him at full forward, but that's the one area where we differ in our front 6. Let's talk about followers. We've got a difference here. I went with Reece Stanley. I think we definitely need to talk about the ruck situation. Again, this is forecasting into round 1. I've got Stanley.
Opening round?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, John, not round 1. Opening round. One might think that opening round is round 1, but that's where you'd be absolutely fucking wrong. Lawson, sorry, I've got Reece Stanley, not Lawson Humphreys in the ruck. Reece Stanley, I've got Tom Stewart and Tom Atkins following. What about you, Johnny?
Got Reece Stanley, Tom Atkins, Tanner Braun in the followings as well.
So, what do you think then of? You're pretty convinced Bruin has taken a bit of a step forward. Like you want him as
Yeah,
that starting on baller. What did you like
yeah.
from him in 2024? Maybe that's given you that tick of approval.
I just liked his a bit more directness to get the ball, a bit more aggression, a bit more hunger, and just I feel like he looked a bit more at home in that tight close-up contest. He'd sort of
Mm-hmm.
He's good kick. He can get around the ground, but I just felt like we got more out of him from the contest. And I think the stats back it up as he had the most contested possessions at the end of the year for the Cats. So yeah, I think that's where his natural game is alongside Tom Atkins. They're both fairly, shortish players, but it also looks like they've got a really stable base and able to take hits and not really fall over that easily. And also dish out good hard hip and shoulders to push people off the ball and, you know, benefit from Reece Stanley's ruck tapping.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only thing that I looked at last year from Tanner Bruin, I think you can't deny well, what you were saying there about like more contested touches. He averaged 8 contested possessions last season. It was sort of 6.5 the year before. He was up to 5.1 clearances per game, which was up from his previous season best of 2.89. So definitely improved in those areas. I just want to see him probably do simple things more consistently. Like just do less. Just win the ball, get it out to somebody else. You don't have to spin and turn and spin and turn every time and run yourself into trouble and out of trouble.
Yeah,
It's like, I watch a lot of American football. Sometimes there's quarterbacks, they hold on to the ball too long and they end up running into trouble. Whereas if they just get it in their hands, look for the obvious option, get it out, and
yeah,
suddenly the
exactly.
play is flowing how you want it. So no, I like it, Johnny. I like that you've back the former giant to go well in the followers group in 2025. I've gone with my man Tom Stewart. I loved him on ball last year.
Yep.
I just think he adds just a really hard edge. Um, I just think he's sort of the violent center of our team that you need, that sort of um, borderline, you know, savagery from a player like Tom Stewart, and I think he just delivers it. But having said that, I think he'd be flexible. Like they got the best of both worlds with him towards the end of the year, where they had him starting, in the middle, but then he'd retreat back once the clearance was won or the other team won it. He would end up back in that defensive 50 taking marks. We
Yeah.
know it's a bit fluid. Let's talk ruck though, Johnny. I think it's
Yep.
important. We've both gone for Reece Stanley. Where, how many games do you think Reece Stanley plays this season? If I said, well, we've got
Oh,
23 home and away games, and I said to you, Reece Stanley, he plays 15 games, more or less than 15 games.
I'd say around 15. I
Yeah, okay.
just think the way Toby Conway's going, I don't think they're really wanting to risk him getting another bad injury. And I think they will really want to wait until he's 100% fit. And he's and he still needs a lot more development. Like the injuries have definitely curtailed his ability to work on his ruck work, his tapping. And I know a lot of people go, oh, he's not, Reece Stanley's not that much better. But at the end of the day, Reece Stanley's a highly experienced player. And sometimes that experience will win out on inexperience. And I really don't really want to see them taking many risks with Toby Conway because he's got pretty prestigious ability, strength, and all that. It's just not coming together. So I think the more we let him craft, hone his craft off the field, get his body right, because tall guys can get those injuries a lot easier. So yeah, I'm expecting Stanley to again do the bulk of the games this year. I think we'll see Toby Conway here and there, but I'm not expecting, more half games Toby Conway, half games Reece Stanley.
Yeah.
I think Toby Conway's got too many injury clouds at the moment to really go, he's our man this year. I think there's another year, possibly 2, before Toby Conway can take on the full load.
Yeah, it's starting to worry me. We did an episode a month or so ago, like talking about things that we're convinced of, or things we're unconvinced of, and I think that was the episode where I talked about it of just being like, I'm starting to really worry about Toby Conway's like future. I know he's young, but gosh, it makes you nervous just that it's these repeat injuries. He's looked dynamite when he's been healthy and on the field. Like he absolutely torched things at VFL level. There was a game against Carlton early last season where I can't remember how it was 25 touches or something. He had a lot of touches. He had a bunch of clearances. He had a bunch of hitouts and he kicked 3 goals, including 2 of them like on the run, snapping around his body, and just looked like, miles too good for the level. But then it's just like the body won't hold up at the moment. And they're having the same issue with Mitch Edwards, obviously. The other, guy they drafted, he's a first-year ruck last year. So no, I think it's Stanley. I think it's Stanley week 1. Sorry, opening round. But that's going to be really interesting to see what develops behind him this year, Johnny, because we might be talking about his name in the Patreon segment tonight. And that would leave you with some questions around 2026.
Yeah.
And what Geelong does at ruck. Let's rattle through our interchange benches because there's another name in here that sort of ties into the ruck conversation potentially that some people might be crying out for in the comments. I went with Lawson Humphreys, Brad Close, Tanner Bruin, and Sam De Koning on the bench. Where did you go, John?
I went Lawson Humphreys, Brad Close, SDK, and Jack Martin.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't got Bose in, and a lot of people will probably be cursing my name. But I'm just going on basing off this opening round. I think why not sacrifice opening round, see how Martin is going. I'll definitely have Bose in there round 1, but if we're talking like opening round, pre-season, I think give Bose a bit of a break. Why not? But yeah, I think Bose will be in there over Martin pretty early, straight up. But I'd like to see what Martin's capable of.
Yeah, well, I reckon it's going to be fascinating to know, like, does he have a realistic chance to make a charge round 1? We know Sean Manor did. Sean Manor didn't play any competitive games of footy before the Cats before he debuted round 1 against the Saints. So it'll be interesting to see, like, what does Jack Martin manage to do? And he's an interesting player, like, 6'1". He's played up forward. He's had time, where he's spent in the midfield as well. It'll be interesting. To me, it's been a real, like, kick the tires kind of opportunity for the Cats. There's this player that they've probably watched at times and gone, geez, he's talented. If we ever had an opportunity to get him on the list, without having to give much up, we'd sign him and have a look. And so that's what 2025 sort of feels like for me, is kick the tires, see what condition he's in, see what he can offer. And you just never know. You might find a bit of a diamond in the rough. I want to talk, Lawson Humphreys, to me, and I'll just outline that on my sub bench, I've got Jack Bowes. You went with Connor O'Sullivan. We can talk about them in a bit, but there's no Mitch Duncan in either of our opening round teams. I think Lawson Humphreys is the 2025, Mitch Duncan entering his peak player. He's like a smooth mover off halfback. He's not exceptional. He's not like a speedster, but he covers the ground well. And like Mitch Duncan used to do, Lawson Humphreys can get involved in the forward press just as well as he can help with things defensively down back. I think he's going to fill that Mitch Duncan role in 2025. I don't know, Johnny. I know they'll want to get Mitch Duncan his games record, but based on what I saw last season, and things can change, I don't have Mitch Duncan in the best 23 coming into opening round.
Yeah, I'm just feeling pretty similar. Like Humphreys over Duncan, like Humphreys, here's the shiny new toy in the cot, as they say. He's fun, he's exciting. I still remember the first goal he kicked. We were there. That was a
Yep.
pretty amazing moment. But yeah, like, and if he keeps developing like he did last year, he's going to be an absolute freak of a player for Cats as well. So I can see Duncan getting into the side at the expense of some older players like Dangerfield. Who else is a bit older? Not many others. We're getting a pretty young side. Blitzavs
That's what I'm
even.
thinking. Like, where's the opportunity? You know, it's going to
Yeah,
have to be. I mean, unless they might just evaluate him as still being part of their best 23, which won't match up
absolutely.
with what we saw last year. But I guess, you know, we came into last season saying, I think it was me saying, sell your Jake Colajazny stock. He's cooked. And then Jake Colajazny had like probably one of the better seasons of his career. So I guess you just don't know what can happen. Good off
No.
season, bit of rest. Mitch Duncan might come back looking refreshed. But yeah, like you know, I think it's hard to find names that you can unseat to get Mitch Duncan into the side
And I guess
at this point in time.
that's the good thing is if we've got questions about Duncan, Guthrie not being in the side, but also just makes it easier going, well, this guy needs a rest this week. We'll bring in Duncan, an experienced player who's got a great kicking ability.
Mm,
He's not as fast as he used to be, but he can still tackle. He's got the
mm,
great kick.
mm.
Got Guthrie who can get in there, apply the pressure in the contest, get the ball out to players like Smith, Stengel,
Mm.
Dempsey, and all that. So yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're missing out. I think it's a really good endorsement on the young talent the Cats have got. But also it goes, and then also we got that opportunity to go, well, these players need a bit of a rest. Thank God we got such and such to step in straight away, not worry about that position for this round.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. With Cam Guthrie, I know we're sort of
Yeah,
going on in overtime here, Johnny. Um,
we
the,
knew we
the
would.
the the last one I just want to touch on here is Sam DeConing. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know 100% if you can carry him on the bench. Like in terms of the height, like you know, have I even got too many talls in my side with DeConing on the bench, plus Stanley, plus Cameron, Shannon Neal, Blixarves, Kolajazny's, a bit of a giant. Jack Henry is like, how many talls can we possibly carry in the 23? But I wonder, do you think there's any outside chance that the Sam DeConing ruck experiment continues, or do you think that was one that they'll go in a pinch if Stanley gets injured? But apart from that, we're not going to
yeah.
run with it.
I think I think it's going to be that in a pinch. If they need him in a pinch, if Stanley needs a break, they'll send DeConing in. They've got Blixavs who can do a fairly decent job, probably a bit better than Sam DeConing, but I think we're just waiting to get Tom DeConing down to the Cats, then Stanley can finally retire.
You didn't manage to like sneak Tom DeConing in. Like I
Yeah, no,
snuck
not yet.
Chad Warner into our greatest cats of all time Christmas dinner. Uh,
You did.
bit of recruitment work.
Got to start him early.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. No, I like that, Johnny. Maybe we'll continue a bit of the chat over in the Patreon part. I know team selection always draws a lot of frenzied feedback
Backlash.
from people. Everyone's got their opinion on
Oh, yes.
what they think the best 23 should be. So if you've got thoughts, drop them down there. Either we can have a crack at it. Ben and Paul might have thoughts as well in episodes upcoming. So happy to have those discussions had in the
Yeah.
YouTube comments, etc.
But just remember,
But there's a lot of names.
may a
Yeah.
thousand blossoms bloom. I mean, everyone's entitled. But every 6 months, someone's torn to pieces in
Don't
the
spend
far
any
north of
time on
Queensland.
it because
Yeah, okay.
in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
That's right. It's just
That's
team
right. That's
selection,
all.
guys.
Give your
It's not a big.
comments.
It's not a big issue. Yeah. Even if you think we're absolute morons, just keep that in mind. Bit of context always
Yep.
helps.
Absolutely.
We might have stuffed up the team selection, but every month. All right, that's all from us on the public part of the show. Yeah, our early 2025 team selection thoughts. We're going to go now and have a chat about retirements. Who might retire at the end of the 2025 season? So if you want to get that part of the show, pop on over to Patreon and give a 7-day free trial a whirl. But until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and go Cats!
Go Cats!